we're committed to growth. And when we say that, it's not all about making money. It's about growing personally, professionally.
Just because you're here for a long time doesn't necessarily mean that you get more money and more leadership. You know what I mean? Like you have to do the best work out of everyone. Hey, how's it going? It's Tim Brown, and this is the Plumbing and HVAC Hustle Podcast. And today I have Steve Akian from Akian Plumbing, Heating, and Air. And where are you guys out of?
Boston, Massachusetts.
Boston, Massachusetts. Just had a couple $1 million months in a row, and we're talking about how to embrace tension to drive growth in your business. So let's get to it. First, I just want to get into how did you get into this, dude? So you were a plumber originally?
Yeah, so been in the industry for 16 years now. Had a neighbor that lived across the street, and he was a plumber. Went to him one day for advice, and fast forward 16 years, here I am running a great business full of great people.
Absolutely. And I guess I have a little bit of what was the trajectory like? If you could kind of verbally outline from you know, $100,000 in revenue up to now. I know you guys are doing $1 million months and stuff like that. So was there an inflection point at any spot in the last few years, or what happened?
So just to give you the timeline, I'll work backwards because it's easier for me to do that numbers wise. So this year we'll close the year around 12 million. Last year we did 8.5. The year before that we did 6. The year before that we did 4. The year before that we did 3. The year before that we did 1.2, something like that, right? So we've been in business for 7 years, a little over 7 years now. So that's been our
Right,
trajectory.
what do you think it'll be 12-ish this year or something?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
go. That's dope. That's incredible. Steve, so did you say this will be your first year probably going over 10?
This will be our first year going
Oh
over
my
10.
God, dude, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks,
We
man.
don't everyone is kind of, people are oh, it must be nice or things like that to business owners, but we don't get enough people that are just dude, over 10 million is fucking crazy. Congrats.
Thank you.
There needs to
Thank
be a
you.
little bit more
Thank you.
camaraderie with business owners because that's tough, dude. To get to that is blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's blood, sweat, tears, but I think most importantly, and what we touched on before kicking off was culture, right? What does that mean? I think so many people talk culture and they define it as let's put a arcade game in our break room. It's like, no, man. Like you know what I mean? Growing the business, at the end of the day, right? People that are on the team here know that I truly care for their success. Why? Because I'm like, dude, I take a minute to talk to them, no matter who they are. And it's like we hired someone to join the warehouse team, and he's great. One of the best hires we've ever had. He's just such a cultural fit, but just when I'm talking to him on the phone, I had a vibe. Then he came in to meet with the person managing the warehouse, and it was just yes, this is the dude, right? And so we don't play games. We literally he left that interview, right? He goes out the front door, gets in his car, and our building is a one way, so you have to loop around. So so Sean and I, right? Sean was the manager who was ultimately making the decision. Sean's like, I like the guy. I go, you want to hire him? He's like, I do. I go, let's do this right fucking now, right? So we walk out the back door, right? Stop his car. He rolls his window down. He's like, what's up? We're like, you're hired. He's like,
Oh,
really? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you know what I mean?
it's the best feeling in the
Like,
world.
but why play games?
Yeah.
When I know people have that philosophy, whatever it is, hire slow, fire fast. Dude, just be real. Just be real. Dude, I like this dude. This dude fits the bill, right? He's a hustler, right? Because that's also part of our culture here is dude, we're committed to growth, right? And when we say that, it's not all about making money. It's about growing personally, professionally, right? So that we can train others that are coming into the industry, because that's our duty. It's our responsibility at the end of the day, right? Share what you know. That's how we learn. It's how we grow as a community. Um, and
Yeah,
so I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent
I
here.
would say
Sorry.
no worries. I mean, obviously, like I'm definitely huge on merit-based stuff. Like I call our business a meritocracy. There could be somebody who's here for a year, but if they're crushing it, they get more money and they get to do better things than somebody who's here for 4 years. Just because you're here for a long time doesn't necessarily mean that you get more money and more leadership. You know what I mean? Like you have to do the best work out of everyone. You know what I mean? That's how you win. It does require to get the most out of people strong sense of purpose. What specific actions do you take to instill a strong sense of purpose in your team?
So that starts with the vision. And now we have almost 50 people in the company. And so when we're talking about vision early on, when there was, so this morning, sorry, backtrack. This morning we met with what we call the OG team. So that there's five of us that were part of the company when we were meeting out of a local donut shop. That's where we had our meetings. And though those five people we met today at that same donut shop, right? Just to talk about what we've experienced over the past few years, right? Because like, dude, like my my right hand man, my day one, like my apprentice from day one, he's still in this company today. He's absolutely killing it. He bought a house, he had a kid, he's getting married. Like all these amazing things are happening to him. And so to answer your question, to loop back to the question you asked, dude, when it was just five, six of us, like everyone knew the vision because we were talking all the time and communication was, it was like boom, face to face all the time. Now, 10 times bigger company, right? That's the importance of establishing core values, mission statement, right? To develop people both personally and professionally. Okay? Core values, teamwork, excellence, growth, perseverance, communication, right? And defining those, like what that means. And then when you bring someone in, like they know what you're about from the beginning. So you
Love
kind of let like,
Yeah, sorry.
no, no, please.
It's the Celsius. It's got me interrupting. I
Bro, don't worry. I got the Starbucks over here, just like, competing with you.
yeah. So we started to read we call it VTO. It's the EOS
Yep.
traction thing. It's
Yep.
basically your vision traction organizer, but it's all the
Yeah.
stuff, your mission, your core values, all that. We started to read that in every interview. And I think that's helped us kind of get it out there a little bit. But it's always a struggle to kind of make sure everyone knows the point. Like, because I've worked at jobs where I didn't know the point of why we cared and why we are pushing. And so I didn't do as good of a job, to be honest with you. I think I was one of those people that couldn't perform at a high level unless I had a strong why. Like I just chilled a lot in my jobs
And you
before.
probably didn't know. You probably also didn't know, Tim, like
Yeah.
what more effort you could have exerted. Just like, like, dude, so I'm into boxing, right?
Yeah.
Passion of mine, right? Like, I don't fight. I don't go around fighting or any shit like that, sparring, none of that. But I go to a boxing club. It's a great workout, really works your mental. Um, And there's a thing, when you punch, right? You want to punch through someone's face, right? You don't want to like just like stop at their face, right? You want to punch through it. And I think that's the why. The why is what's behind someone's head when you're trying to punch through it. You know what I'm saying? Like when you have that why, it allows you to exert even more force because you're coming to that with a purpose, right? And so you got to break that down. Like part of our onboarding part, I love the VTO thing, and we are also subscribed to EOS. We go to their events. I don't know if you do.
I did. I did. Did you go to this big one in San Diego recently?
So our general manager and finance controller were there.
Hell yeah. No, I'm a huge fan of US, man. Like massive.
Yeah, it's a great system.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You reminded me of this thing. There's a roofing company that we work with, Monarch Roofing, in the Carolinas, and the guy was talking to his sales apprentice kind of, and he was like talking about the punching through, and he's like punched through the bag, and like he's like talking about how it's not just this homeowner that we want to sell. We want to sell fucking the three referrals that we get from
Yeah.
that homeowner. So
Yeah.
we're not just trying to sell one system here. We're trying to get three referrals from every homeowner. And I'm like, I love working with clients like that because I'm like, if we can get you a lead from Google, if you can think about it, like I'm trying to get a couple more from this, everything just goes further. You know what I mean? So I love the analogy of punching through the bag and the why, the big why. So I got another question for you here. Excuse me. The next question is, how do you approach mentorship and development, like personal development in your company?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. It's in our actions. It's in our daily actions, right? So let's let's take that and park that for a second, right? The scheduled things that we have are the one-on-ones that we have, the meetings that we have. We have a monthly company wides, and during those company wides, we typically take time to reflect, right? A lot of our meetings start with like gratitude exercises. Um, so it's things like that, but the biggest impact is really the daily actions that that the leaders in the company take, right?
Can you
And
can
then
you do me
also all
can you do that gratitude exercise with me? I like doing role play if you've got something, or like tell me like how did you do that? Because that sounds like a great way to start a meeting. I'd love to do that.
so there's a few different ways. It depends on the meeting. So if it's a smaller meeting, smaller group setting, like us, let's say we're having a meeting with just the service department, right? Or just the install department, or just with the office staff. We start off with like, I'm up by the whiteboard, or our managers up by the whiteboard, and as people are coming into the meeting, hey, what's one thing you woke up grateful for today? And we're whiteboarding, we're putting it all up there, and right? So that's something we do during the service meeting. During our company wide meetings are like mini Tony Robbins seminars, right? So like people are getting up, people are dancing around. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, mind you, right? And like they're moving around, they're getting their physiology, involved, and they're feeling good, and blood's flowing, and we ask everyone to break up into groups of three and go around in a circle until everyone's shared three gratitudes. And so that's what it looks like at the company wide level, right? The room gets loud, it gets noisy. It's a great way to kick off the meeting and start the day off with some gratitude.
Love that. My wife do the three things we're grateful for on the way to work because we work together every morning. And the only other thing I've started to add is like, what's your intention for the day? Which I think setting an intention too is good. Man, I love that, dude. Love Tony Robbins. Classic, badass. Okay, so let's talk about yeah, you can continue. I kind of interrupted you halfway through your answer there. I apologize.
No, I think we were done. We were just talking about
Oh,
like how we do the gratitude exercises.
yeah, the gratitude exercise and like how you're doing like mentorship and development. Any other things that you're doing like towards that?
The biggest thing is it's the daily actions. It's the communication rhythm through the company, making sure that's being kept up. I was talking with a friend recently who had some issues in one of his departments, and what happened? Communication breakdown occurred when he looked into it. Communication breakdown occurred. They stopped having weekly meetings, and man, those meetings, like I think a lot of people, they underestimate the importance of them. Meetings are where people feel heard. So, then tying that back to our mission statement, all of us throughout the entire company are leaders. Even the kid that we have on co-op that's in high school, we teach him or her that they are a leader. If you're here at Akian, right? You're working for a company that's an industry leader and is becoming the leader in the industry. And when you go back to school, it's important to to exemplify that in your daily actions, by being a good person, by being giving, by being forgiving, and so again, don't underestimate the daily actions, right? You have to be congruent what it is that you're saying and what it is that you're doing and what it is that you're thinking. When those align, man, you end up having impact when you speak.
Steve, I love that. I know you have an interesting story. Can you give me a couple examples of past experiences that helped shape your leadership style and who you are today?
Yeah, I definitely think a big part of it is my upbringing, being raised. So my heritage, Greek, Italian, Armenian, very loud household, household that is full of respecting the household and respecting elders. So, respect was always a big thing. Family and friends, community, that was always a big thing. And just appreciating, you know, so much of my family are immigrants, right? From Greece and other parts of the world, Italy, um, other parts of the world. And I respect what I have because I know what they didn't, because those were stories that were near and dear to me. And that's part of what makes me motivates me to go out there and grind because dude, I know what I have here in the United States. Like every day is another opportunity. And that alone created a very strong willpower within me. And that willpower is something that helped me through some really tough times, not only as a business owner, but a good part of my 20s I was struggling with addiction. And that was something that I had to do significant work to get out of and become the man that I wanted to be.
Hmm. All right, now I'm going to get into a couple specific things that I want to poke around about, if that's okay, Steve, because I like to keep this entertaining to our audience. And so I know that
Yeah.
you have an interesting story with taxes. Can you give us that brief story, maybe a little bit of like how to not have that happen to you or how to deal with it if it
Yeah.
does?
Yeah. Inspect what you expect, right? And definitely hire professionals. And then like kind of I'll tie this all together with a nice ribbon for you, Tim.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I believe in building a system, right? It's like the Navy has a saying, trust but verify. So I believe in building a system that has a little bit of self-policing in it. So I like to make it so that like as we're building and growing things, that we have departments or people within the company that are able to help others when they realize there's a gap there, right? You need someone else to tell you when your taillight's broken,
Yeah.
right? And so early on in the company, we were doing our taxes. We were doing them once a year, right? Going to our tax person, and um, I just started realizing like once we went like over like 1 million in revenue, I'm like, shit, dude, like we gotta like do. I feel like we gotta be meeting with our accountant more often than once a year. So I wasn't really feeling it with the person that we were using for accounting. We were using a professional firm and everything. It even referred to this firm by a family member, which really sucked because when I hired someone else, they came into my office, which was in my home at the time, and within 30 minutes, this dude's telling me that we owe $500,000 to the IRS and possibly another 500,000 in penalties. 30 minutes because we didn't have payroll tax being taken out properly.
Hmm.
Dude, like this is my first business that I'm operating. I don't know about this shit, right? Like, and I'm going to an accountant expecting him, like, I'm going to my tax guy expecting him to tell me, like,
Yeah.
anything taxes, you do it, right?
Yeah.
So, so that was,
It's kind of like
that,
accountants. It's like now we have two, and then my wife. So it's like we got a separate accountant for taxes, and then we've got like a fractional CFO. It's like kind of like it feels crazy as you grow, but it's almost like it's okay to have a couple too sometimes to just like make sure you're not going nuts.
He does is he teaches the most valuable team in your business. He'll just add nothing but profit.
There's so much money left in the call center. So much money. If you're not at a 90% booking rate, showing empathy on the phone, smiling on the phone, making sure they're having a better day after they got off the phone with you, then you need to call Power Selling Pros and see Brigham.
But also to make sure that everything's like,
Kosher.
yeah.
Yeah.
You literally took the words out. I was about to say that, Tim.
Yeah,
Which
yeah,
is good.
sorry.
We're synced
Okay,
up
we're
now, dude.
synced up. Okay, if we're synced up, this next question is really gonna see whether we're synced up. Can you give me a little bit of how, I know that you had issues with chemicals at some point in your life. Can you give me a little bit of that story and maybe what you've learned from all that and what you're doing now
The
with
biggest
those
lesson
lessons?
that I learned from that, the biggest lesson that I learned from that is that, you know, um, to keep what you have to give it away. You have to give back. And that was, I remember my early, early days of recovering and getting better. I met a friend in a meeting and I asked him, his name is Rich, and I turned to him and I said, Richie, how do I get out of this? And what I realized years later was thought is nothing more than a process of asking ourselves questions. And when we ask good questions, our mind seeks solutions. And I'm forever grateful for the people that I met at that point in my life and the lessons that I learned. I had a friend one time when he found out that I had gone through that. Um, because I was a very high functioning addict, right? So I
How long
wasn't,
ago was this, by the way?
huh?
How long ago did you start recovery?
About 8 years. It's been about 8 years now. Yeah.
Congratulations, man. What
Yeah.
a
Well, 8 years since I've been clean. Eight
yeah,
years since I've been clean. So it's been longer than that, from when I
yeah,
like really started
yeah,
that journey of like healing and getting
yeah.
better. Um, but like, I met, so one of my friends who didn't know I was going through that, was like, wow, like imagine if you hadn't gone through that, how much like more successful you would have been. And I'm like, no, dude, like that was part of my journey. And I'm not even gonna say unfortunately, because dude, like just the lessons that I learned about myself, about life, you
Yeah.
can't put a price tag on that, man. You
Yeah,
know?
totally. I'm in the same boat, by the way. I, am in recovery and stuff. So, and I don't mind talking about that on this podcast because I think it's relatable to a lot of people. And if not, hopefully there's a lesson here that might
Yeah.
be relatable to you. And it's tough to say I don't regret anything because maybe we hurt somebody, but I am grateful for recovery. I'm very grateful. And sometimes it takes something extreme to get into it. Like in my case, I'm in the community, you know what I mean? And I feel very taken care of by people in the recovery community and stuff like that. And the biggest one for me, you said, you got to give it away to keep it. And one huge one that's been huge for me is just like being useful to other people. Like my whole life, like when I'm anxious, I like looked around and say like, well, how could I be useful? You know what I mean? Like, and I'm spending my life like that. And I didn't know any of this. I didn't know any of that stuff, like without recovery principles. So for me, that one thing alone has made my life a lot better for sure. Not to mention, the whole like not being in pain on a regular basis from my actions. But um, yeah, I'm grateful for that stuff too, man. I don't know. I mean, you sound like I wasn't that high functioning, by the way. So I was kind of homeless, kind of homeless at the end of my thing. So, anyways, 13 years. So,
Good for you, man.
yeah.
That's it's amazing every time I meet someone who has gone through that and survived that,
Hmm.
right? Because that's what it is, man. Like it's a blessing that I survived. It's a blessing that you've survived and that we're both here. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. I never take a day for I'll never take a day for granted, man.
Yeah.
And just that outlook that it gives you, today's Friday, and on Wednesday morning, I got a phone call this past Wednesday that my grandfather passed away. And all that I've learned has given me the strength to be able to, I don't want to say cope with that, but to be able to say, like, I'm 35 years old. I've had 35 beautiful years with that man, and he was a good man. And so having that, the fact that he was a good man on top of having him for 35 years, that defeats the pain. Like, of course I miss him, and I'm going to. Still, in the process of grieving. Like, but dude, like you sit back and you think how lucky we are for what we have. My fiance never met any of her grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
She never met any of her grandparents. And a lot of people haven't, right? So, yeah, just that, going back to the gratitude, that's so important to just set our filter up to see like opportunity in all that we do have, even when shit happens, when shit hits the fan, or, it's like the ability to feel grateful, like throughout anything, is a blessing.
I feel grateful to just be talking to you about this. I honestly, like I say this a lot, but most people don't watch that many episodes in a row anyways. So I love getting to talk to other business owners. This is the best part. This is a really good part of my job. I like to go out and shadow people with video stuff, and then I also get to have these conversations. And I'm essentially getting free mentorship half the time from the guests, which is really good. It's really good. And like even if only 100 people, 200, 500 people watch this or whatever, I get to experience that growth from listening, and leadership and culture and these things are so important, and gratefulness, to be able to infuse that into your team, to be able to kind of invite that and to create a culture that kind of has some of these mentally healthy habits. I
Yeah.
think is a huge takeaway here how could you do that I'm just talking to the audience here, like how could you do that this week to infuse a mentally healthy habit? I was thinking about doing, in my line of business, we have a lot of clients, but like there's always, like, we have a lot of clients now, so there's always somebody kind of going away, and it's actually really sad and heartbreaking for me. I'm always thinking about them, always thinking about the ones that are going away, and I'm not thinking about the 95 that are staying. And I think that, like, so I'm thinking about doing a gratitude wall that's just like all the very nice things that are said about us and things like that, to remind myself that it's not just because one person's going away this week does not mean that our businesses failed or something like that, which I think is tough. It's tough with an ongoing recurring business. I'm sure occasionally, I don't know if there's a parallel over there where it's like trying to keep your brain on the fact that most clients are happy.
You know, I hear you there, and I totally understand you there, because whenever a bad review comes in, a 1-star review comes in, um, it used to hit me so hard, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
What did we do? How did we miss this mark? And when I realized, of course we respond to that review, we call that customer, we do our best to make it so that everything is copacetic, and if we part, we're at least parting in an amicable way.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're serving everyone, you're serving no one. And that was that to me is so true, and that's throughout everything. That was one lesson that I learned from my grandfather too. My grandfather told me that if you're not pissing some people off, you're probably bullshit.
That's good. That's good. That's good, because yes, I always say, like, to try to be real on these podcasts, because the truth is almost every time I listen to a podcast, I hear everyone tiptoeing around the real shit. And I'm like, can we just say the real shit?
Yeah.
literally like, yeah, somebody's going to be annoyed, but also somebody like most people are just dying for a little bit of authenticity. Like we just really want some realness. Like to even admit that you have 1-star reviews. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the things that people need to hear. And those are the hardest stuff to talk about sometimes is the realist. I was, hey, I'm trying to get my mental health right. I'm hanging out with my therapist yesterday. She said, she uses this analogy around peaches. She says that even if you're the most juicy peach in the world, it's a funny analogy. Even if you're the most ripe, juicy peach in the world, that there's some people that are just gonna be like, I don't like peaches.
Yeah,
I
sure,
like that.
sure,
It's kind of a funny analogy, but it's real. And you think about like there's
it's
people
true.
in the industry that I know fucking hate me, right? Like, and I think to myself, like, there's some people that are just gonna always feel that way. If I was to try to go out and please every single one of them, like you're saying, like I'm literally like chasing like the 5% that aren't for me.
Yeah,
And like for instance, there's customers out there with home services that are like literally always just looking for the bottom of the barrel pricing. They don't care about service. They don't care
yeah,
about any of the extra stuff that you've built up to make the best customers happy. You've made systems to make these customers happy and they don't care at all about them because they're just looking for fucking bottom of the barrel stuff.
right.
I got a couple perennial segments here. It's called Hot Takes and Cold Trends. What is something that people in the industry might find controversial, but that you would defend?
Hey there, are you a home service business owner that's tired of your answering service just kicking the can down the road? Well, we can help. Pink Collars will assign a dedicated, supported, and trained individual to answer your phones, emails, texts, and even more. Give us a call at 888-325-7465, or better yet, check us out online, www.pinkcolors.com.
Something that people, what is something in the industry that people might find controversial that I would defend? Remote work, working remotely. We've done it successfully. We're continuing to do it. It's part of our plans for expansion to capitalize how good we are at it. Because where we're at right now, we will be acquiring other smaller businesses soon in the near future to continue our expansion into other parts of Massachusetts. And yeah, so that's one thing that I would say a lot of people are, oh, it's bad for culture, it's bad for this, and I would disagree because I have the backup to show that it works.
Word, I would fight you. Well, in my line of business, everyone does remote. So like for us, it's like weird that we're in person. So, but we do 2 days a week remote. Anyways,
Cool.
what about cold trends? What's something you think people are wasting time, money, energy, or effort on that they should stop?
Going to too many industry events.
Yeah.
They're good. They're
Yeah.
good. Don't get me wrong. They're
Yeah.
good, but I see a lot of the same faces at these events and they're stagnant in their growth. And like, dude, like take this idea, run with it for a while. Be consistent. Yes, we want to innovate. Yes, we want to be able to pivot and move and right, be light on our toes, and something comes, you want to be able to dodge it, move around it. Of course you want to be able to do that. But there's something to be said about following a process and sticking to it. So pick something, stick with it, right? Like, because I think that's one, I don't want to call it a problem, but that's one thing that if you're going to all these events, it's kind of like the opposite of what we were just talking about, where like who are your clients, right? Work towards them, or like if you're liked by if you're going to everybody, if you like everybody's shit that's out there, then you're not implementing any of it. if you like this dude's sales training, this dude's sales training, and this dude's sales training, and you're fucking doing all three, dude, you're confusing your team. So that's what I would say. I know that might upset some people that do well off of those events, and
Yeah.
that I keep doing those events because I've had a good time. I've gone to those events, but
Yeah.
like maybe one a year is good. You know what I mean?
You know what? I'll just say this. It's not me because I'm not influential in this industry yet, but there's influencers that are benefiting from the events. Like we're a vendor that serves people in the industry. And so we are at a lot of events. But then people see that and then they kind of copy it, but you shouldn't be copying a vendor. You know what I mean? And you shouldn't. Yeah, I think it's addicting. It's kind of like summer camp or something. So people are going, it's fun, they're
Well,
partying a
you
little.
go, it's fun, you get a fucking rush, right?
Yeah.
Like you feel productive. Are you really though? You know,
Mhm.
like so what you said earlier, I don't know if it was in a previous discussion or during this, but you're talking about like clarifying your intentions at the beginning of the day. You should fucking clarify your intentions before you do anything. Anything.
Yeah.
You should clarify your intentions before you start a meeting. You should clarify your intentions at the beginning of a day. You should clarify your intentions when you're going to an event so you can clarify what is it that I am looking to get out of this,
Yeah.
so that you can
Try to
fucking
stick
do
it.
that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. I think that too, like when there's a squabble of some type, whether it's a competitor messing with us or there's internet drama or there's a disagreement in my business or something, I think because there's ego, and I think men in particular have this kind of issue with ego sometimes where we get in a fight and it's like literally if we just think about what we actually want from this fight or this like disagreement, there should be disagreements in your business, right? There should be
Yeah.
tension. Should
Yes.
be, should be. But at a certain point, I have to go. I step back from it and I go, "What do I really want out of this?" I would, a lot of times lately, I've been thinking to myself, "I would like this to go smoothly, and I don't care if I get exactly the way I think it should be done. I want this result at the end of the day, even if
Yeah.
it takes a little longer to get there because we go the wrong route first." I want my leaders to have like the autonomy and the ability to build systems, and even if they need to fail a couple times, I can't I can't fix I can't take away their ability to fail. Otherwise, I'm kind of stealing that from them. And I might tell them how I've failed in the past. I tell them how I've failed sometimes just so that they know, hey, I've tried something kind of like that and I failed wildly. Maybe you don't have to, but like I clarify that I don't necessarily need to always get my own way. This like it's good tension in business too. It's not always bad to have tension.
No, you need to have tension because that's where ideas are born. I think that's where good ideas are born. Healthy tension, right? Like
Mm.
healthy conversations. Healthy conversation. If everybody, so like, dude, there's kind of a pattern here, right? If everybody's liking what you're saying, they probably don't. If everyone's like, yeah,
Yeah.
another great idea, Steve. Fuck yeah, like you probably don't have a team that's being real with you. You know,
Hmm.
yeah, but we got to set the tone there. We got to create that environment, right?
Yeah.
As leaders, we got to make sure that everyone knows, yo, listen, you can speak up in this room and
Yeah.
start a conversation. You can disagree with anybody in this whole company, right?
And I'm just following this thread into an objection I have just because I think it makes the discussion more rich. Sometimes, we get addicted to being contrarian. Like I have people on my team that I'm like, okay, wait until there's something real to disagree because I think I attract contrarians sometimes. I don't
Okay.
know. My main leader, like my main GM type guy, he is a contrarian. So sometimes I gotta be like, so wait until you really disagree. Don't just disagree to disagree kind of thing. But yeah, embracing tension is a massive thing. And like, I think we're talking about embracing tension, and not everyone has to like what you're saying. And people need to know the big why in your company. We got a lot of great topics that we discussed here. Yeah, how can people get a hold of you if they would like to chat or Maybe go to one of the events that you're going to. Ding.
I'm yeah, open to that. So they can find me on Facebook, Steve Akian, or they can shoot me a text. You want me to just kind of ring my number out? Is that cool?
Absolutely.
So yeah, 617-894-1016 is my cell. So you can shoot me a text and happy to hop on a call to, provide some insight or support however I can.
Watch a few pieces of content that he's been on. He's been on some other podcasts. He's got other content out there before you pick his brain. That's always my tip with people, like, try to watch a little bit of the content so that you're not asking repetitive questions if they've answered them a ton before.
Can I piggyback on that, Tim?
Yeah.
So for those operators out there that are building a company, right? Like, get a screen recording software, because so many things can be documented by video. Save that to a drive somewhere and boom, you've created a process around it. I was talking to our CSR manager earlier today. She does coaching with all the CSRs on Friday. They all do a 30-minute coaching call where she reviews their calls. And I asked her, I go, are you recording these? And she's like, I'm not. But she knew right what I was getting at. But that would be a great idea because we could use that for training content later. I go, boom, exactly. So exactly what you just.
Have you seen Loom? Loom.
I've seen Loom.
Loom
Yeah.
has AI features that just came out like in the last 6 months that are fucking nuts.
Okay.
It literally, like, I was like gonna have I have a new assistant. And I was like doing looms to like give her the processes, and I was doing them a couple times so that she could make a standard operating procedure from them.
Yep.
And then I like didn't realize it, but I clicked up to like the AI tools, and it was like it had already figured out that it was a standard operating procedure and written it. Like, what the hell? There's so many crazy tools. So dude, the new Loom AI is nuts. I mean, it doesn't, there's kinks to be worked out, but that might be something other people could consider too, for standard operating procedures.
I appreciate you for saying that. And you know where I'm going to put that? I'm going to put that on our issues list on our L10.
Yes.
Our weekly L10, right?
We got traction in common. We got recovery in common. Now we'll have Loom in common, maybe.
Yeah. Good things come in threes, Tim. Good things come in threes.
Well, thank you so much for being on, sir. Have a great one.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me, Tim.